Welcome to mypersonalfootballcoach.com's Soccer Player Development Podcast. Discover all the secrets, hints and tips about soccer player development and soccer coaching from some of the leading figures in world soccer. Here's your host, Saul Isaacson Hurst.
Hi everyone, Saul here, back again. This week we've got a sensational guest for you. It's Michel Hordijk. Michel is an ex-skill trainer at Ajax. Is a famous academy, one of the best academies in world football. Very much a skills individual specialist like myself. I first met Michel maybe 6-7 years ago when I was one of my visits to watch Ajax in the academy work. Like I say, top coach, similar to methodology to myself, very much based around the work of Will Cover, 1v1 ball mastery, 1v1 domination. I've been trying to get him on the show for many years. Funny, I've had him come on a couple of times. We've had some technical difficulties. His schedule was very busy, but finally managed to get him down and get him on the show and share some of his incredible work. Like I say, worked at Ajax for many years. Interestingly, under Ajax, when Cruyff was there, was in charge of the club, and we challenged some misconceptions about skill development work and some misconceptions about what Cruyff thinks about skill development work. Like I said, he worked under Cruyff there. Cruyff, a big fan of the individual ball work, the ball mastery and 1v1. But yeah, like I say, a top guest, someone I've been trying to get on for many, many years. Like I say, one of the best coaches I've seen work around the world on my many travels, and great to get his insight into how to develop individuals, working for one of the biggest academies in world football, one of the best academies in world football, and obviously working under Cruyff and the Cruyff project there to try and improve Ajax, the academy, and make players technical better, and how that Cruyff philosophy and that individual ball work comes together, which is really interesting. But like I say, a top guest. One, like I say, I'm so happy I've finally got him on. I also just want to say a big welcome to Football IQ in Kent and also San Francisco Vikings, two new clubs on board with the My Personal Football Coach Club partnership. If you're interested in how the club partnership can take your club or federation to the next level, give all the players and parents access to the app, world-class coaching resources for the coaches, and also all those great advantages you get in the back end, being able to check usage, set player challenges, utilize all those great club partnership benefits. Just drop me a DM, and also I've got a special podcast discount for all you clubs. If you just drop me a message and mention the podcast, I'll give you an exclusive podcast discount on the club partnership, supporting players in a world-class online training resource, and also got a big announcement coming with that as well. Got another Premier League academy, one of the biggest academies in the country, about to sign up. Can't announce it yet, but we're excited again. Remember, this club partnership has been utilised with clubs like Arsenal, Blackburn Rovers, Wolves, Middlesbrough, and many others. So you can really get your players to train like a pro and experience some of that world-class Premier League academy training. But anyway, let's get back to the show. Like I said, this one is not to be missed, so I hope you're going to enjoy it. So welcome back to another MPFC Youth Soccer Player Development Podcast. Very special guest today is Michel Hordijk. Michel, how are you doing?
I'm good, thank you very much. How are you?
Very well. This is, I'll tell the listeners and the viewers, this is the most anticipated podcast ever. I've been trying to get you on the show for many, many years. We've had trouble with our schedule, your schedule, mainly you're very busy, but so happy to finally have you on. Really excited about this one. Just tell the viewers and people listening, just a little bit brief outline of your playing and coaching journey.
Well, I started as a coach actually in a professional way in 2004 with NAC Breda. It's a club in the Netherlands, and actually after that, it brought me to FC Utrecht, which is also in the Netherlands, CSKA Moscow in Russia, long time ago, of course. And also I worked for Ajax Amsterdam 5 years in the youth academy. And also I worked for clubs like, it's a small club, Volendam, FC Volendam in the Netherlands. And at the moment I work for, again, NAC Breda. And also I do some things for Victoria Pilsen in the Czech Republic.
Okay, so you're fantastic. Very, very wealth of experience. So the first time I came across you, the first time we met was when you were working at Ajax. You're a skills coach. So you had a skill development or individual skills specialist there. Just tell everybody then, tell us about your background, your coaching philosophy. I mean, this is why I'm so excited to get you on the show. I watched you coach, and I see someone who has the same sort of methodology as myself, and I don't see that many of us around. Mm-hmm. Obviously, Holland is the birthplace of it. So tell us a bit about your background in coaching, how you came up with this methodology.
Well, actually, it started when I was a player, and actually it started when I was a youth player, so to speak. Because when I was 14 or 15 years old, then there was a book from Will Curver, from the Curver method, eventually, and then I started to, as a youth player, I started to work with that. Just practicing all the skills and all the moves and everything, which I already did, of course. But then I think when I grew older, I automatically saw a little bit of the method. So as I was a player, I was, starting to understand the things behind it, how you build up actually the whole method. And then when I started to work as a coach when I was really young, I think it was 17 or 18, and I started with a friend of mine, and we did like the under 9 or something, just with a small amateur club in our hometown. And then we started to use already this philosophy from Curver, which is a lot of about technical development. And then actually I did quite some years, I think 10 or 12 years, I just work with a team, traditional way, just have a team like the under 9 or the under 12 or even all older groups. And then actually in 2004 there was a guy in an amateur club in my hometown, and he said, "Look, can you just now instead of taking one team, can you work as a specialist in this technical stuff and work with all our age groups, and on a Monday this group, and then this group and this group. So actually during the week take different groups and work with them with the emphasis on the technical and creative development." So this was really, for me it was like, okay, we can do this. So we started to do it like that, and actually I noticed that, well, first of all, I liked it very much for myself to work in that way, and at the same time there was some kind of, let's say, a development in football, that you saw more and more specialists on this matter, like Ricardo Moniz was actually at PSV Eindhoven back then. René Meulensteen, who also came from let's say the Will Curver angle, or that philosophy. He worked at that time for Manchester United already. So I started thinking, okay, I think this is maybe something for me to give something in a club, to be able to give something that's not everywhere, because like I said, it was in some clubs they had like a technical coach or a skills coach, but back then not with all teams or not with all clubs. So then I just started to simply send some letters to some clubs, and eventually NAC Breda, they responded in the most concrete way, so I started to work there. And then it was again, when I started in NAC Breda in 2006, for them it was a new thing to have a specialist on technical skills, and so I started to work with the under, I think the under 12s were the youngest then, until the under 21. So
that's really interesting, because obviously in this country people will have heard of Cova Coaching, the big coaching company with Alf Gullestein, Charlie Cook, great innovators. But it's interesting because that Will Cova is obviously the father of all this work. Obviously Dutch, he's Dutch as well. Mm-hmm. So that's why you talk about Ricardo and Rene and yourself. There was like a big movement, isn't it? I suppose this is the birthplace of this type of individual skill work based around 1v1 domination. I'm interested in terms of then you said you bought a book. In those days it was like, rather than on the app or a DVD. Tell us about that then. I'm interested in, tell us about your developing this methodology. We'll move into the Ajax stuff after, because I think, for me, that's, you get to Ajax, you're the benchmark, one of the best around. Talk about that journey. Then how do you build your understanding of that? I've got one of those walkover books, and I look at it now and thinking, wow, how trying to read that in terms of translate it into it must have been quite a challenge. Tell us about your journey there in developing this methodology. Did you go and watch other people? Could you see other practitioners work?
Yeah, of course. Well, I think what happened when I joined Ajax, and actually the way I got to Ajax was a little bit like, I worked individually already at that time with some players, also from Ajax, actually working for FC Utrecht, but I worked with some players on an individual basis. One of them was Steven Bergwijn, now playing in Saudi Arabia. Maybe the viewers know him.
Yeah.
And then people at Ajax started to talk about this, and then they invited me to have talks about maybe joining Ajax in the upcoming season, because there were a lot of things going on back then. There were, we had Johan Cruyff already wrote his column in the newspaper talking about, okay, we have to change things. This is not my Ajax anymore. This is not my club. I don't recognize actually the identity of the club. So that was in that period, and then we started to talk about it. And what happened there, when we talk about my own development in that way, actually then Curve and Cruyff, the philosophy, they came together in a way. You know what I mean? It's not like they're completely different. No, of course not, because I think there are a lot of, similarities, or how do you say this? There are a lot of things that are in common. But I think in that time it was actually a very good thing also for me, and to also in the sense of how to work actually in a concrete way with the players, to combine actually the elements of Curver and Cruyff, which meant when we had the plan Cruyff, let me put it that way, we had 8 or 9, I think it were 8 game principles of play. So actually the challenge was to put them together. So that actually was what I did at Ajax. And
can we just, Michel, before we go into that, I just want to talk about those principles, because I think there's a couple of misconceptions, which is great. You challenged there straight away. Well, first of all, is that that people talk about the Cruyff and the Kova philosophy being different, and obviously there's a massive people align that, like I said, everyone says, Rene talked about it when he was on the podcast. You put those two things together, it's the perfect mix. And then Ricardo as well, who I've known and worked with, and he's on the show as well. And so that's interesting. But also you went into that Ajax when Cruyff was actually involved in that team as well, and that was they embracing that individual skill work, right, aligned with the possession play and team play, isn't it? So that was actually that's what people's misconception here. People say, "Oh no, it's there's no link here. Cruyff wouldn't." Actually, that was that practice, wasn't it? Cruyff came in, you were there doing the individual skill work. There was all that team-based stuff as well. That's almost like the perfect combination of player development. Can you talk a bit about that?
Yeah, of course. I think Curver and Cruyff, they never met in a little as a person, but I think Cruyff was really supporting the method, especially in the younger age groups, because he said, "Look, we don't have the street football anymore, so we have to the technical development, we have to do it in a different way, and we can use the Curve method to achieve that, to do that." So and he always said, "Look, the technical skills are actually the basis of football," and I think he considered the Curve method, in the let's say in the original way. Let me put it that way, as one of the tools to do that. So I think. Like you said, maybe a lot of people think it's two different things. No, I think Also, that I think the reason for that is also because a lot of people see the Cruyff method as a very, let me say, in a very narrow way. You know what I mean? It's much more than practicing moves or everything. No, there's a whole philosophy behind it, and not only a philosophy, but also when you look at the method, literally when you take the book, I think there are like 7 or 8 chapters. Is that a word, chapter?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah,
and I think only the first 2. Only the first chapter is about controlling the ball, and then when you read the other chapters, it's also about dominating the 1v1. That's with an opponent, of course. It's about positional play. It's about scoring goals. About creating chances. It's about tactics. It's about physics. But a lot of people think, it's only about this. No, it's not. The other thing, I think, when you talk about a philosophy, there's a great actually similarity between Cruyff and Cruyff when you look at their ideal about football. Their idea about football, Cruyff said, people have to come to the stadium and enjoy the game. It's actually you play football for the people, and I think Cruyff was also let's say a visionary about this. He said, look, he wanted to make the football more beautiful. So that was the starting point for them both, I think. So it's not a coincidence that this came together in Ajax.
Can you tell us about? Then you talked about the 8 principles when you were in the Cruyff's principles of play. Can you tell us about those?
Yeah. Of course. Look, in football, we hear a lot of talk about attacking, defending, transition, and actually we started to look at this in a different way, and it was because of the talks that we had with Johan about this, because Cruyff wasn't like writing down stuff, and he wasn't like a writer or with an iPad doing things. No, he was just talking. And then we listened to him, and he said, for example, he was talking about, you always have to have a third player. Okay. And then he started to talk about this, because he said the third man is actually an attacking principle, but it's also a defending principle. Actually, he didn't call it a principle at all. He was just talking about it. And then we said, could you call this a principle? He said, you could call it a principle, but it's not like it's an attacking principle or a defensive principle, because it's both at the same time. Because when I have the ball, of course I have to create the third man situation to have an advantage. The third man has the advantage that he has the game in front of him when he receives the ball. You have also the surprised element, because the player, the opponent doesn't there is a third player, and then we have the advantage. But it's also when we create this situation, when we lose the ball, then we can also win the ball back very fast because of the position of the players. So we always saw this in a more holistic way, and from that, we got the 8 principles. So it's about playing compact, because he was always talking about distances. So we have to play compact. It doesn't mean play back. No, it means in an attacking way on the half of the opponent. Forward defending, 3-second rule. Creating the 1v1 situation, because when you have the creative players who can have a dribble, we have to put them in that position. It's not that doesn't work automatically. So all these principles we started to implement in the academy. And of course, because I was working mostly with the younger age groups, of course you cannot do all 8 with the small groups, but you can already start with with a compact playing, or with a 3-second rule. When we lose the ball, win it back as soon as possible. You can start to develop that behavior in a very on a very young age, I think, and that's what Cruyff brought into Ajax at the time.
So interesting, because I think there's another misconception type of work you do, myself, we do, is that it's also built around those connections, 2v2, 3v3s, and I'm a big fan of the third man as well, particularly because I feel it's a great way to get players with awareness, get your head up, link the play, getting them to play together, and having that mixture of staying on the ball but playing quick as well and connecting. And also people talk about scanning, and that's really it, isn't it? You're working on how am I linking with my teammates, my movement off the ball, my movement's never for myself, it's for my team. I'm linking my movement, working those coordinations. Can you tell us a bit about that then, the importance of that, the small-sided games as well in the philosophy, and those outcomes you get in terms of building those relationships, combinations, two-player. I think that third man is so important, and I remember it from Ajax, and obviously Barcelona's a big thing there as well. It's like, every session should have that element of the third man, particularly in possession, because that links, the awareness and playing quickly. Can you tell us a bit about small-sided, the philosophy, and how that, the advantages of that?
Well, actually, we had this issue actually also when we started in Ajax. We also had exactly this in the match formats, the game formats, because we were, Cruyff was a really fan. I was a great fan of the 6v6, for example, as a game format. And then we saw actually that the players, when you talk about small-sided games, the players were playing games in spaces that were way too big at that time, and also with large numbers like 8v8, or even I think the under 11, they played 11 against 11 at that time at Ajax. So then we said, no, we have to make this smaller in game situations, but automatically when we train during the week, we have to use the small-sided games like you said, the 2v1s, the 3v2s, the 4v4s, to connect actually the technical skills with decision making, because those things in football, it's always about, actually eventually it's about the solutions that you can find. And actually the game principles were like having a framework for the players to understand a little bit, and also in a playful way, to get to know, to understand, to recognize the situation. Okay, when I play now deep ball, then the other one can be a third man, and then after that we can maybe put somebody in a 1v1. So you cannot do that in big games. You can in a way, like when you play 10v10 or 9v9, it's really difficult to eventually they have to do it, but not in the younger age groups. That's my point.
And tell us about then the 1v1. Obviously, this is really the basis of the philosophy. Tell us about that 1v1 and your understanding of it and the impact it has on all of the you coaching, the way you coach.
Well, the idea behind it is really simple. I think when we have at the end of the process, when the players are adult players, when we have 11 players on the pitch that can dominate the 1v1, then we have already a huge advantage. So to put the emphasis on that, I think is really good. It's actually not really, it's necessary to dominate the game. To dominate the game, you have to have players who dominate the 1v1. That's actually the whole idea. And when you have also players who can, can do vertical dribbling, you can always create spaces. You can always have also again, not only for creating chances or creating space, but also for the audience. Everybody likes when players make a dribble. So it's also, again, when you talk about the philosophy, to that you play football for the audience, for the people. Yeah, it's also good. I think people like to see this. It's spectacular when players,
And tell us how you break it down for us then. How do you break down the 1v1 in your coaching methodology, and then tell us about how you put that into practice, how you teach the players, how you coach the players.
I think it's pretty simple. I think it's important to because this is also this is always a discussion in football when you talk about youth development. For example, for me it's really simple. You just practice. For example, you practice a certain move, and then you put player in a certain situation where the opponent can be in front of you, or comes from the side, or comes from the back. All those things. So two things: you have to, give them inspiration, but also repetition, just with the ball. I practice this, and then put them in a situation where they have to dominate or pass an opponent, and you can use actually the environment. You can, for example, if I want to put the emphasis on dominating and change the direction, then I put maybe 2 or 3 goals, 1 or 2 opponents, and then try to find a space while being on the ball. That's a dominating. That's more dominating situation. The other thing, again, there is always a bit of a discussion about practicing with the ball without any context, without any opponent or pressure. I think maybe that's kind of interesting to tell a little bit about when we had Johan Cruyff in our meeting. Of course, every week we had meetings, but I asked Johan a couple of times to join also the meeting with the coaches for the younger teams, under 8, under 12. And then one time he was there, and there was exactly this question. One coach asked, "Okay, Mr. Cruyff, what do you think is the best method to train technical skills? Is it just practicing with the ball, or is it always in a context or whatever?" And then he said, he told a funny story. He said, "Look, when I was a child, when I was like 8 or 9, I had a ball and it was in the hallway. And when I went out, I always took the ball. When I went outside, sometimes there were maybe like 10 children or 12 or 8 or whatever. And then we took, we did like games, small-sided games. Sometimes I had a friend who was living next door. When we were with the 2 of us, we did 1v1, or we did exercises together or whatever. Sometimes I was alone," he said, "and then I had a wall, and then I was practicing kicking the ball, receiving the ball, repetition actually." So actually what he said, in a way, was like, you need everything. You can't say, okay, this is good, that is bad. No, you need actually the best balance between practicing and make the repetitions, maybe do 100 times the kicking outside foot, which was one of his specialties eventually, but also to train this in a more game realistic way. It's not this or that. I think it's not black and white, and that's what he was trying to explain in this story, and that's what I also believe. So I believe in the combination and the best balance between practicing just a skill. We call it I don't know if it's an expression in English. We say dry practicing. Dry means without any context, without any opponent. So I believe this is good, because this gives this makes the moves and the technique that makes it gets into the system of the player in his brain. But of course, you're gonna say, okay, if every player can do fantastic moves without an opponent, without any context, you cannot say then it's a good player. No, he also has to learn to make the right decisions and to be able to have the timing. And therefore, you need the exercises when you have choices where you can go to the left, you can go to the right. You have to do the timing. You have to then you have to build a whole environment in which he can practice this one. So it's actually always in my vision, it's always the connection between those things. And it depends really on the level of the players and also the age of the players. What is a little bit of what you put the emphasis on?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. It's about balance, isn't it, Michel? And it's interesting. Yeah, and like we live in I say this all the time, a binary world. Everyone's black or white or yes or no, or there's no in the middle. And it's interesting, isn't it? We seem to come. We live in a strange coaching world where we've gone so extreme now. So everything must be a game, everything must be in that team related, and we've forgotten that individual work, like you say. Players developing that. And also, I know that's what you do now. We're going to talk about that's what I do as well. I go into a lot of academies here in England and around the world and share best practice about developing that individual ball mastery and 1v1 linked, to the game, because they just don't have that now. In the coaching courses don't have it anymore. We've gone to one extreme. Maybe one extreme to the other. We're in an extreme now where it's don't spend any time on the ball. Is it relevant? You don't teach players technique. It's all guided discovery. Is that the same sort of thing in Holland now? Is that the same principle? Is it gone that way as well?
I'm afraid so. Yeah, yeah. I think there's a lot of emphasis on tactics, on how to win the game, and it's not about. I think in Holland also the individual development is actually not even second place. I think it's people talk about it a lot. Yeah, in our club, in our academy, the individual development is the most important. And of course, I'm sure there will be clubs and academies that really work from this idea. But I have to say that I'm afraid that a lot of clubs and academies, they talk about it, but they don't do it.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like, it's just games, I suppose, everything, and then players aren't really developing that individual relationship with the ball. Whereas individual, I put it like this: it's like sink or swim. If players have it, well done, congratulations. If you don't have it, it's almost like, well, that's it, tough. You got to go and do it yourself, and it's a frustrating thing. Tell us about them. So we go back to your time at Ajax, Cruyff's Ajax. Tell us about your time how would you organise your week? So you're going from team to team. Working with different age groups. How do you decide what you're going to coach, and what does that practice look like on the pitch, for example? Can you give us an idea of general sessions and how much time you spend with each age group? What exactly are you doing on the pitch there?
Well, to be clear, actually in Ajax I had two things that I did. The first thing, I was like a technical manager for the younger age groups. So for that age group, actually I was more like making sure that Plan Cruyff, that we could translate this into a day-to-day working method. That was my job actually. The other thing, like as an individual coach, I worked a little bit more with the older age groups, and for that, the older age groups, they had in that time they had everybody had an individual plan. So, and with this plan, the players were like, let's say once a week or maybe twice a week, we organized training sessions where every player was in an exercise where they could improve in my perspective, their skills that were in their individual plan. So it also had a relation with their position, of course, because when we talk about under 16, 17, 18, you already know pretty well, this is going to be a winger, this is going to be so it was a little bit like that. And I can remember then it was just like, okay, we look at the plan, what are the focus points of the player in this period, and then we just put them in a situation where we can do this. And then I didn't do it on my own. I work together with some players like some coaches like, for example, Ronald de Boer. I worked with Ronald de Boer quite some time, and then we did actually then he said, okay, we have to create something for this player to develop this or that, and then I was more, because I had more experience with the exercise. But what exercise can you create? Maybe with 5 players or 6 or 4, and then we started to work with that, and of course then we could, really work on the details, and with his, knowledge of the game as an experienced ex-top player, he could also give this experience to the players.
Sorry, Michel, can you give us an idea of that process then? For example, you got a 16, maybe a general conventional, maybe a wide player who has problems with breaking the line on one side or something, going on the outside. Maybe that's how would you approach that then, in terms of how would you layer that in terms of supporting the player?
Well, in the end, I think it's important to see the whole picture. It's so that means if you have let's say a winger who can maybe have a good dribble, but he doesn't have a good cross, or the other way around. So you always have to look at the position. You have to look at the natural talent of the player, because everybody has a certain, let's say a weapon, not a really good word, but you know what I mean, a strength. And from that you make the plan, and then, but it's really important when you talk about individual development that the player is central, and actually the coach. So, for example, you have this under 16. In an ideal world, that's what we try to create. We have a coach who's for example the under 16 coach. He has his players, and this coach is actually the mentor of this player, and then we start to make a plan for this player, and then we use the specialist. That can be a skills coach, but it can also be somebody who's with the video thing, and with the tactical stuff. So it is actually it is the whole approach which puts the player first, central. And then you create a program. That's the whole idea. And then it really depends on again, for example, with the first team, then I can remember. No, not in the first team. With Ajax in the under 19, we had Victor Fischer, for example. Just to give you an idea, Victor Fischer was a good player, but he played from the left, but he didn't. He always went to the inside. When he dribbled, he always went to the inside. So he wasn't able. Well, he was able, but he was trying to, I think, avoid the cross with the left. So he always went inside. Then you have to just simply make a program and then let him do. Again, there you go again. Have the repetition, and to let him practice. For example, make the scissors with the right foot, go with the left, and then just practice the cross with the left foot, just like 100 times, because that will make him more unpredictable. That's just that was the case with him, for example. Yeah.
I think you make a good point there, isn't it? Because it's like they crossing with the weak foot, they're going to need that repetition, aren't they? That volume, the high volume of, if he can't kick a ball, if he or she can't kick a ball with their weaker foot, you need that volume repetition, right? Isolate, exactly. And then bring that back in and link it into a game practice. Exactly.
That's the whole, again, about the discussion about you just have to play the game, but no, if you do that, again, you don't get the repetition, because if you let him play, in this case with Victor, if we let him play all the time 11 against 11 or 9v9, then maybe he will have 3 or 4 of these situations, and he will not. He will maybe even then he will try to avoid this. So we have to put him in the situation and just do it over and over again. It's really
Yeah,
strange that. Yeah. Yeah, it's really strange that in other sports it's a very normal thing, I think. When you look at tennis or...
Yeah, it's a bizarre reality. It's like you're never going to get the volume of repetition in a game to work on that. You have to isolate it. And obviously the context is, I need to kick the ball with my weak foot. And this is where the game-based ideas break down, because that's why it's gone too far. You need that. And it's very frustrating, for myself who works with players. I work with Premier League players who've had trouble with their weak foot. And it's, unless you isolate weak, they're never going to improve it. And it's just, like you say, any sport, you have that, but we have this strange reality in football. And we move anyway. We could talk about that all day. The contradictions in that philosophy. Tell us a bit about then. So we talked about tell us about the younger age groups. Then, how do you approach the foundation phase or the 8s to 12s? Tell us about that. Your coaching philosophy, how the skill work that Will Cover philosophy works with the younger age groups and in practice, obviously.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, when I talk about Ajax, there was when I spoke to Johan and to Wim Jonk as well, who was the head of the academy. They also had this idea about, because this is actually where it all comes from. I don't know about England. I think I have an idea, but in Holland, the street football is actually not there anymore, and we have to understand that. Again, what I said about Cruyff's story about when he was a kid, we missed that part actually of the development. So what Johan said and what Wim Jonk has said as well, we have to bring the street football into the academy. We have to bring it back in a way. So when I was responsible for these age groups, I started to think about, okay, how can we do this in order to have this development on the technical part, but also the creative part, also about understanding the game. And then we started to implement some elements in it. Literally play on the street, for example. We let the children play because they were used to train all the time on the artificial grass. Always with the same balls, always with the same shoes, with the same grass, same environment. So we started to play on the parking lot, with small balls, with big balls, we started to do that. We started to mix groups because one element, because in football it's the same as in schools. We put players who are born in 2018. We put them in a group because they are born in 2018. But when we look back, I don't know about you, I think I'm a little bit older, but I can imagine you played also on the street. Sometimes you were the youngest, sometimes you were the oldest, it was all mixed. And this element from the street we also took into our youngest age groups, because it's a natural thing to learn that younger players learn from older players, and also the other way around, to develop leadership. In a technical way, again, young players can see what the other players do and try to imitate them. But also in other ways, children can learn from each other. And again, it's also, when you look at street football, it has a lot of elements. Also, when we talk about differential learning, it's actually automatically in the street football, because when I was a child and I went on the street, sometimes we went on concrete, sometimes we went on like stones, sometimes we went on grass, sometimes we went on, all kind of surfaces that we played on. Sometimes we played with my ball, which was maybe a little bit different than my friend's ball. It was always different. And also this is, I think, is a very good thing to use for the technical development, because on the artificial grass, always the same circumstances. It's very predictable. The ball goes always like the same maybe okay. Sometimes you have dry grass, sometimes you have wet grass, but that's pretty much it. So also I think it's good to, for younger, especially for the younger players, to expose them actually to the elements of the street football, and that's what we did at Ajax. We played futsal, we played, like I said, on the parking lot, and also it's not only. That's another difference. That's another important thing, I believe. It's not only that you say, okay, we're going to play on the parking lot, which is from concrete surface or whatever. It's also the culture of the street, because if you want to have a good, let's say an optimal technical and creative development, you need freedom, you need autonomy, and it's not. You cannot have that when you go back to the street football. It's not normal that. Well, it's not like there is a father or a coach, next to the street and talking about you have to do this, you have to do that. No. So actually, it's also really important to have a certain time, also just in an academy like Ajax or whatever academy, to give this freedom to the player to do whatever he wants, because this will also explore his technical. He can explore his technical possibilities. He can see, okay, I can do this, I can do this, I can do that, which I think is very important. So
what do you say, Michel? Then I'll play devil's advocate now. Sorry, what do you say to the people who the some of the game-based people say, well, why don't you just let them play? Why do you coach them? Just let them, put them in a street situation and just leave them like that. That is street football. How would you counter that argument in terms of, why are you coaching them and stuff like that?
Well, I think when you look at the creative development of players, it's really important they can make their own choices. They have to be able to make mistakes, and if you and I think. And there's also, I think there is also some kind of pressure. If there is a coach always talking, you have to do this, you should have done that. I think then there is no natural development, and then the of course, in a way, then the player will learn how to play. Well, we'll learn to play the way the coach wants him to play, okay? But that doesn't mean that it's always the best thing. Of course, you cannot say, we just let them play because otherwise we do that all the time. No. Of course, we have to also here again. You talk about balance. It's not like we had a whole week and we just gave them a ball and we said, look, you can do whatever you want. No, you have to have the balance between this and between total freedom and between you can only do this and everything that's in between. You have to have the right balance. That's the whole, I think, the whole work as a coach.
Can you tell us, Michel? Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, go for it. So just, can you give us an idea then what a typical session would look like of yours? Can you run it through, in terms of beginning to end? If you're going to work with a group of players, what a typical session might look like?
Typical. Let's say there are so many ways to have a structure in a training session, but normally I would say, I just start with a quick feet work. I do warm up with quick feet work. Just give everybody a ball and just do exercises like V move, like take the ball between your feet and to get into the rhythm, because you always see you have to have a high rhythm. So then you start with that on a very small space. Then I use a hexagon, a hexagon I use a lot with 6 angles, because then you can do moves. You just go Make a cut, make a move, make a dribble, pom, and then the next one comes, pom, pom, pom. So actually, that's really practicing with the ball, dribbling, making a cut, making a turn, making a scissors, in the highest possible rhythm. And then I would add. Then I would do something like a 1v1 to actually put the player in a situation where they can use the moves and the skills that they trained in the first phase. And again, it's really about it depends on the level, it depends on the age, but it's always about how do I prepare my environment. That's the thing. The right space, the right distances, the right number of goals or directions, and then you have to observe. I think that's always one of the most important things as a coach is to observe. I see a lot of training sessions, and then I'm wondering, okay. Let's talk about me. That's what I do. I just observe, and I think, okay, is this what I see now? Is this optimal for the players? Can I maybe make it a little bit smaller, make it a little bit bigger? Can I add another goal so they have another opportunity to score, then another direction or whatever? It's always about, okay, what do I want to achieve? What do I want the players to practice? And then I have to observe. I have to look. Okay, is this what I was having in mind? And is this the best for the players? If it's not, you have to think about something that makes it even better. And again, it's always about the distance, maybe the opponents. Is it fair? For example, is it fair for this player to have every time this opponent? Maybe he's too strong. Observe all the time, and then so it's not. Maybe it sounds a little bit like not really concrete, but I always have a plan with a certain exercise, but it can change all the time, because again I have to. Sometimes it goes. Sometimes I have training sessions. I come on the field, and then I see players already practicing something. They have a ball. Like yesterday, there were a couple of players who were practicing outside foot. Passing outside foot. They were just, just before the training. Then I started to do something with that in the training session, because I thought, okay, now they are there with their mind, and I can use that a little bit. So not all the whole session, but you know what I mean. So it's always. For me, it's really hard to say, we're going to do that, and then that's it. No, we have some structure, we have a plan, but you have to always be aware of, what you see on the pitch.
What about how do you keep fresh yourself, Michel? How do you keep developing yourself? How do you keep sharp and the top of your game, and to keep fresh?
Yeah. I think one of the things to be a better coach all the time, I think you have to consider yourself a player in a way. So look, I think when you told me you had Ricardo in your podcast as well, and I think what I recognize with him also is, you have to stay fit. I mean, Ricardo is a little bit older than I am, but so okay. So even more beautiful that he's still fit. He's training for himself. He's developing actually his technical skills still, and I try to do that as well. I try to stay fit. I'm 55 now. I train like a player. That's one of the things. And the other thing is actually to also again, keep your eyes open, and talk to other people who who are, who can inspire you, talk to people, and that can sometimes, it's not even in football, but other people who have ideas about development or about how you approach children or whatever. So actually, I think those things, try to keep really yourself, keep fit, stay sharp, and find people who are, it's not always people who totally agree with you, because I think it's also good to have conversations with people who are thinking in a totally different way, and that keeps you sharp as well, I think.
And it's, I think it's interesting now, because obviously the coaching courses are very much gone to the game based and not recommending the individual technical work, the 1v1 work. But I mean,
right.
when I look at the social media, there's lots of young coaches coming up now, lots of young people trying to replicate the work of Will Cover and trying to do that, the ball mastery, a lot of these private academies, some great young coaches coming through. What would your advice be to a young coach in terms of how do they then go and upskill themselves in this philosophy in terms of trying to be, a top quality skills coach?
Yeah, I think it's one thing that I can say to that is that I think it's really, maybe a little bit of a cliche, but I think it's really important to follow your own way, because to become better every day, but again, to follow your own way, because and if this way will be, to be just a private individual coach, or to have your own academy, or to have your own school, or whatever, because I think it's you have to understand, if you work in a club system, I think nowadays it's pretty difficult to because you have a different position, you know what I mean? I think when you are in a club and you work as an individual coach, as an individual skills coach, when you have like 10 team coaches in your club, where you have to work with them, because you have to work with their players. Yeah, that's a little bit. Maybe 2 or 3 of them will really like what you do, but the other 7 will think, we don't want to do this actually. We prefer to prepare for the game for next Saturday and do the tactics and everything. So you have to be aware. Okay, if I go in a club, I'm gonna experience resistance. I'm gonna experience, it's not in a personal way, but it's just like, not all team coaches find it really important. So you have to be aware of that. So for that reason, I say, look, follow your own way, and think about, okay, what do I want to do? And I think, again, it's not. It's also a natural thing that if because players are not even when they grow up, and also parents, they are not crazy. They see that the individual work, when it's not been done in the clubs, they find another way. So if it can be your job to do that, I think it's a fantastic. Way and really important work. So, but again, the cliche is follow your own way. Yeah, but that's for everybody. It can be something different. Yeah, sorry.
I mean, you talked about this. You mentioned that the irony isn't it? A lot of these young outliers, the best players, are sourcing technical work outside of the clubs, because they're maybe not getting that individual stuff, But let's move on to. This is related, because obviously let's talk about what you're doing now. Similar to myself, I think you're traveling around and you visit a lot of academies and support them with their individual program. Tell us about your work now, how that works, that consultancy work, and what does that look like?
Well, I actually my role is different in the clubs that I work now. I mean, for NAC Breda, with NAC Breda in the Netherlands, I just go. I work every time I'm there. I work with a team. Yeah, I'm not. So I just have. If I go to the under 13, I have the 14 or 16 players, and I make sure that once a week at least they have this technical work. Let's say for 30 or 40 minutes. That's what actually we decided to do now. In the past, we did a little bit more like what we call the high potentials. But then I said, yeah, but okay, when we only work with the high potentials. Yeah, who are the high potentials? You cannot tell when there are 10 or 12 or 14. It's always so. That's kind of we said no. Let's make sure, because this is also what we decided with the head of the academy, who understands this. Okay, if we want to make sure that all these players in the whole academy they have this technical development on a weekly basis. Yeah, okay, then we can just put it in the program. So in NAC Breda, I'm really a skills coach for all players. Let's put it that way. And in Victoria Pilsen, it's really a different thing, because there I'm a little bit more coach of the coach, the coach for the coaches, because there I just watch training sessions. I'm not on the field that much myself. I just watch training sessions. I give feedback to the coaches, and then again it's about it's about exercises. Again, then I can ask, did you see this or that? Was this the goal from your session? And then by asking these questions, he can understand. Okay, maybe I should have. Maybe it was perfect. Okay, but maybe it was not, and then I could have changed maybe the distance, or maybe changed the numbers or whatever. That's more the role that I have in Pilsen. Yeah. Actually, to see. Yeah.
Go, sorry, Michael. Go, Michel.
No, and also because there are in Pilsen we have actually 3 pillars. The first one, we call it the Cruyff quality. So I have to actually, not like a police officer, but I have to observe if these Cruyff qualities are properly trained. Well, actually I have to see also if they are trained anyway. So in the first place, so if they are trained, okay, how do we do this? So we have the Cruyff qualities, then we have playing together. So those are the game principles. So that's more like that I can see. Okay, we want to train depth before width, for example. That's a game principle. Okay, and then I can help the coaches to create the exercises that will help the players to understand this principle. And the third one, again, that's the individual. Those are the individual plans. That's the third pillar. And also there I'm a little bit of a, one of the people who tries to make sure that the player is central, which sounds normal or but it's not. It's not like always the player is central, and that's actually really important, because
Hi everyone, hope you're enjoying the show. Just want to quickly tell you guys about the My Personal Football Coach Club Partnership. This is an opportunity to take your club, academy or federation to the next level, offering all your players world-class online technical training with the My Personal Football Coach app. All your coaches also get access to the Coaches Pass for absolutely free. And also you can do lots of cool stuff in the club partnership, like check usage, check the players' challenges. There's leaderboards on there, and they can upload their own videos. Lots and lots of things. Like I say, this is a really unique offering. There's nothing out there like it. Arsenal have used it in their academies, Middlesbrough, Wolverhampton Wanderers, Blackburn currently using it, plus hundreds of soccer clubs around the world. So if you're interested in understanding how the My Personal Football Coach Club Partnership can take your club or federation to the next level, drop me a DM, drop me a line, saul@mypersonalfootballcoach.com, or you can message me on any of my socials. I'm also offering an exclusive podcast discount to clubs now for the next month. Just drop me a DM and mention the podcast, and you get an exclusive discount as well. We'll set up a demo for free and see what all the fuss is about. about and take your club to the next level. Without further ado, let's get into the show again.